Good day, everybody, and welcome back into my channel. Before we get started with the leak, I just want to cover the latest Strixhaven spoilers and which cards are interesting for us, as well as make a quick comparison between Grixis control and other control decks in the current metagame. So in regards to Strixhaven, there are basically a couple of modern playable cards and a couple of cards that I believe are going to be staples, like Lumimancer, etc. But for us, in terms of control, there are three cards in particular that I think are of more interest, or specific interest. And the first one I want to showcase here is Vanishing Verse, exile target monocolored permanent, which is going to be playable in Esper Control, of course. Esper Control already being one of the strongest decks in Modern right now, and probably the strongest control deck for the average player. And therefore, this is just going to be a very good addition that I believe can fit into the main board. And definitely, as soon as Strixhaven drops on Modo, which is probably going to be sometime next week, I think, I'm going to try out Vanishing Verse in the main as one or two of, as it hits most threats in Modern right now. The only cards that I want to mention that it does not hit is Renan 6, which, for any control decks is very problematic. And then, of course, Teferi, you would also like to hit, but that's just too bad. But other than that, most of the important cards in Modern you hit outside of the colorless artifacts or Eldrazi. So you hit Death Shadow, Gauze, Swift Spears, Stormwing Entity, which is a very important one, especially because you're mostly not playing paths in Esper Control, but opt to go with Failed Push, and therefore Vanishing Verse is a very good hedge in that direction. Of course, you also do have Drown Loch to complement Vanishing Verse, but Vanishing Verse is just more versatile, and you can also hit enchantments, of course, like Choke, Blood Moon, so all these problematic stuff. And also cleans up Seasoned Pyromancer, etc. very well. So just a very versatile card, and I think a very good one to have in Esper Control. Then there is Fracture, also a card for Esper, which says destroy target artifact, enchantment, or planeswalker. This card is, if it's going to be played, it's a sideboard card. It's definitely very good, very versatile, but you always have to compare it with cards like Purge, etc. Because in the main board, like if we account for Vanishing Verse, you already can deal with Artifact Enchantment and to a certain amount with Planeswalkers as well through Eliminate. And therefore, it stands to be argued if this adds a whole new dimension or not. So I'm not 100% sure if this is better than Celestial Purge, which of course is easier to cast under a Blood Moon and therefore provides you with a little bit more flexibility in that regard. And you already have enchantment and removal in terms of Vanishing Verse and also Esper Charm in the main board. So that is covered as well. And then there's only artifacts. And artifacts mostly you want to deal with through Stony Silence. So I'm not 100% sure that Fracture is actually as good as many people think, but it is definitely a card that we want to look out for. And then last but not least is Valentin, Dean of the Vein. So this is an overlooked card, I think. So I have not seen anyone talk about this card, both in the spoiler videos of other content creators as well as on Reddit. But I think this is actually the best card for us black control or mid-range players, because the effect of having a replacement effect on a 1-mana creature, which is recastable by Lurrus, is actually pretty decent, and it does have additional upside. So lifelink in our colors is always great. And the backside, I mean, it's not good anyway, but we also don't need it. I'm just interested in Valentin, Dean of the Vein, and I'm glad this is the front side. And so it just synergizes very well with a lot of the other cards that we have. It also does have lifelink itself, in addition to like the, what is it? Yeah, pest creatures that are giving you a life gain when they die. And it also does have menace, so you basically can attack every turn with it unless your opponent leaves back 2 blockers. So overall, I think this is a very good version of Kalitas for us in a post-Lurrus deck building form. And if you really want to play the backside, then you can still do so through Valky's ultimate. But as I said, most likely not relevant, but might be playable as well. All right, so now metagame comparison real quick. Not starting with Grixis, but starting with Esper, but this is not the correct one, this one. All right, so I haven't updated the list recently, but I will probably this coming weekend. I think I want to cut down one Kaya's Guile, although I think is one of the best cards in the deck right now, and also add a couple of Planeswalkers to be closer to the typical blue-white lists, because that's basically what this is, right? These Esper lists are blue-white plus a better removal package. And the reason that Esper control is just better positioned than Azorius control, and also blue-black control, one has to say, is that you do have access to graveyard hate through Kaya's Guile while also gaining a certain amount of life. So many of the control decks have issues with the very aggressive nature of the format right now. So the prowess decks, and to a certain degree also decks that run a one-off what's it called, Kroxa from the graveyard, or other value creatures from the graveyard that are being recast. And you don't have mainboard answers to it. Kaya's Guile solves a lot of those problems, and it's very versatile, and Kaya's Guile therefore is just the main reason that these types of decks are seeing a lot of play right now and are well positioned. And of course you also do have Eliminate, which is noteworthy because it's one of the only cards that trade with Red and 6 equally, although of course at that point he's probably going to be a card ahead, but you're trading 2 for 1, which is already a good rate for any control deck dealing with Red and 6. And then Shark Typhoon has been dropped, and I also sold mine. It's still a good card, definitely, but it was meant to fight Teferi for the most part, and Teferi is mostly absent from the format right now. Some controllers are running it, some are omitting it completely. It's just not well positioned because most of the format, as I said, is very fast and does feature either hasty creatures or cards that are comboing off when they are being replayed. So bouncing a Heliod might give you a certain degree of leverage, but for the most part, it's going to be combo next turn anyway. And you can't protect your pieces with Force of Negation because your opponent's playing creature combo, of course. Other than that, Skyclave Apparition also made it a little bit more difficult for typical Azorius control lists to like hate on the graveyard with Rest in Peace in certain matchups. And the same goes, of course, for Stony Silence. So Fracture might actually be a little bit better due to that fact. But you just don't want to be playing Path to Exile in the first 2 turns, and your opponents are mostly forcing you to do so, and therefore, whenever you can, you are going to cut Path to Exiles. It's still a decent list, of course. Blue-white control can definitely put up very good results in any meta, and this goes also for this meta. You just have to be a decent pilot and also adjust your sideboard and your main board for the metagame, of course. But still, Esper is the best control deck by a certain margin, and then there's Grixis, of course. So after my PTQ top 8, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I've seen a rise in people playing the list, both online and also people asking me. So I was playing the mirror more often than not. And apparently it has subsided, but I still think it's pretty well positioned and I'm pretty happy with the list. I made a couple of changes to the sideboard to accommodate for changes in the metagame, namely here the Flusterstorms and Jigsaw Jailers. So Flusterstorms are in here because we don't have a good way of combating Living Ends, and because they are protecting their combo with both Mystical Dispute post board as well as Force of Negation main board with 4 copies. And Flusterstorm gets around both of those cards pretty handily, and your opponent is already casting 2 cards, so you're always going with X equaling 3, so 3 copies for your Storm counts if nothing else happened during that turn. And of course, with just 1 mana, you might be able to cast something else as well to just increase the amount of spells on the stack. And super easy to cast back and with Snapcaster Mage, and therefore plus the Storm for that matchup in there, because Living End is actually probably the premier non-creature combo deck in Modern right now, and it's pretty well positioned due to the fact that it can wipe the board, so it's very good against all the creature strategies, and it can also hate on a lot of decks because Force of Negation and also Brazen Borrower as a 4 of main just deal with a lot of stuff that combo decks would normally not be able to deal with. In regards to Jigsaw Jailer, that is of course a hedge against graveyard-centric decks like Dredge, which have seen a slight uptick, and therefore Nail Spellbomb is good, but it's just not enough right now. And Jigsaw Jailer fills a gap there that I just want to have as a safety guard. And of course I could go with more Nail Spellbombs, but Nail Spellbomb also decreases the amount of targets I have with Drownloch, so there's always a slight trade-off. That's also why I would never, unless there's like a really good reason metagame-wise, I would not play Nail Spellbomb in the main, because it does hinder a couple of our cards, and it does create awkward positions from time to time where you need to draw a card in the mid game, but you do have your Drownloch up, and therefore you won't be able to answer something else the next turn. And I mean, it's still possible, but it is clunky at times. Damping Sphere, I believe, is still probably the best option against the meta, because, as I said, you do have a little bit of hate against the non-creature combos like Living End. It's decent because they can only combo off with 4 mana at that point, and if they want to interact, they already need 6 mana at the very least, and that's just a very good rate to be as a reactive player. Same goes for Storm, and then there's of course also the added benefit of going up against Amulet Titan as well as Eldrazi and Normaltron. Normaltron, by the way, has seen a certain degree of a rise, so I might, I haven't really been playing these last 2 weeks due to being with my family and traveling a bit, so I might take on the Jigsaw Jailers as well and just add another land hate card, which isn't a Damping Sphere, because the third Damping Sphere really doesn't add any good benefits for you, but I might want to switch it back at that point. I did 5-0 yesterday though, and if you want to see me play live from time to time, I'm streaming through Twitch whenever I do have a time slot, and I'm being spontaneous. So yeah, you can hop on over to Discord and just watch out for me posting a Discord live command. Yeah, that's it for the metagame and the deck tech. Let's jump into a league. Welcome to round number 1. We're playing against Anne Lively's Death, and it appears to be the same list I was playing against yesterday. when I beat her or him 2-0. I think I'm going to keep this hand. So this is a Urian list, a 5-color Urian list, which is focused on land hate, and I think also features Kikijiki as a combo. Not 100% sure because I haven't seen it, but it seems to be a creature combo deck. And for that reason, I'm going to start off somewhat aggressively here. Oh yeah, it also features Ephemerate. So that is very problematic with Avalanche Rider, of course. So I probably have to get rid of Ephemerate here, because otherwise my removal spells don't work. And I could also get rid of Court of Calling, but next turn he doesn't have a core target, and then he doesn't have any good plays, unless he draws something off the top. So I could see him go with Yorion next turn, of course, already. So I think Ephemerate is the correct choice here. And that also means that he is playing Eternal Witness. Okay, so just an attack apparently, yeah. Which is fine. And then if he's going to go with the Avalanche Rider, we can counter that. And if there's something else, then we do have Drawn as well. Digital lands. So one is enough. I want to protect my Inquisition to a certain, or keep my Inquisition to a certain degree. And now I'm going to go with K command here. I would also have the option, like next turn I'm going to go Valky and Drownloch, but this turn I just want to stifle his ability to generate mana to a certain degree so that he cannot do multiple things. Okay, discard Court, which is interesting because that means that he is maintaining reactive force to a certain degree. Okay, so at that point he wasn't even able to. All right, yeah, that's perfect. So I'm gonna shock here and then go with Valky. And okay, does have an Ephemerate. So I think he already does have 5 in the graveyard, and there are no good targets for Yorion right now. So I think I'm just gonna go with Apparition here. Also because it's a little bit easier for us. To counter the Yorion if he's tapped out, so he can only do one thing at a time. Just have to see, Ephemerate cannot target my creatures, right? Yeah, you control. Thought so. Alright, that was a quickie. And then post-board, we need to maintain a certain amount of counter spells here, but I also do want to have a degree of discard spells. So I think Neil's Spellbomb is actually decent because the most obnoxious thing that can happen with these decks is them cycling Ephemerate from the graveyard through Eternal Witness. So these cards I want to have. Valky is actually very good in this matchup because that forces my opponent to maintain a certain amount of interaction in order to not get completely blown out by Valky and a 2-for-1 or worse whenever I transform it. Archmage's Charm isn't great in the matchup, to be entirely honest, and I need to cut 6 cards, which is quite a bit. So I think I want to cut the Archmage's Charms, just a little bit clunky, especially if my opponent is coming for my lands. And I could also go with Maya Triton here, because it's just a very good blocker. But I fear that it does not provide enough value for me to warrant playing it. Not sure. Not sure. I think I'm just gonna cut one more Cryptic here. But that might be just too much. Let's see. It might become a problem if I'm getting blown out by Ephemerates. Then I need to add more counterspells again. But my opponent's playing 80 cards, so I don't know how likely it actually is for him or her to have Ephemerate in hand. So we don't have a turn 1 removal or interaction spell, which is a little bit sad, but we do have turn 2 Valky, which is nice. I'm gonna play this one and then go with Valky next turn, and then we do have Hologon's Command after that. Alright. So Stoneforge isn't the worst thing that can happen here. It looks like this might already be an Ephemerate. And he's gotten a Sword of Fire and Ice. Yeah. Alright, so he's definitely holding up an Ephemerate here. And how relevant is that for us? I think I'm still gonna go with Valky here. See what he does have in hand. A little sad that we didn't. Oh, he was bluffing an Ephemerate. Interesting. Interesting. Not bad, opponent, not bad. Alright, so Spells Guide is a little bit problematic. Therefore, I might want to take the Spells Guide here. Also, it's just a decent thing to have against swords in general. Typically, the Ice Fang Wall is the best card here, but I think actually Spells Guide is our pick. Because otherwise, the K-Command... I mean, K-Command can get around the Spells Guide due to just targeting it as well. But then I cannot kill the other... Okay, so Drew lands. Definitely has enough mana. And also does have a Core of Calling right now. But he cannot do both. This way, he cannot go with Ice Fang Wall and a sword. And then next turn we have double push, which is also not too bad. And I can get rid of both of these tiny creatures. I could, of course, also like play a Jace, keep up Fatal Push, but he does have enough mana to double equip it. I could do it in combat phase though. He's probably gonna equip it to the Ice Fang Wall. The only problem I have is if he draws an Ephemerate. So I think I'm just gonna stay with what I have and let him cast. I assume that he's gonna cast the Ice Fang Wall right now. Yeah. And then goes with the sword next turn. The good thing is that even if he does have an Ephemerate, so I'm gonna go destroy and kill here. I think that's a little bit better than going after the Ice Fang Wall here, because if he goes with Ephemerate after the Ice Fang, of course we get completely blown out here by... Okay, another land. This is gone. Alright. He didn't even attack with Ice Fang. Interesting. So I do have Cryptic up now, and apparently my opponent does not have either an Ephemerate or Veil of Summer. So I'm just gonna shock. We do have a little bit of life to play with. And keep up the Cryptic command. Opponent could of course go with the Core of Calling here, but doesn't do so. And I think I'm just gonna go counter draw here to try to prevent something really bad from happening. Alright, so we know that the two cards are Yorion and Core of Calling in hand. Is attacking. Alright. So it's a little bit problematic. Yorion will be able to bounce both Stoneforge and the Ice Fang. Alright, so definitely want to have the Dread War. I'm a little bit concerned with the Core of Calling, because I don't know what my opponent actually does have in his deck. I know that at least one card is Skyclave Apparition, so that would be a pretty good card for him to grab in order to free up the Spell Sky, but of course then he doesn't have any action. And so I think I'm gonna just kill the Stoneforge Mystic here and attack him. And then if he doesn't do anything, meaning, let's see, 3/3. What's the worst thing that can happen? Like if I kill the Ice Fang here, yeah, I think I'm just gonna go ahead here and kill the Ice Fang as well. Because now my opponent needs to do something, like he need. Alright, that's actually a decent hit for us. Seems like this might be Core of Calling. Let's see. Now this is Core for 3, which is fine. Yeah, that's definitely fine. So I need to kill it here in order to being able to... Alright. GG's. Alright, welcome to round number 2. This time we are on the play, and I just remembered that I actually wanted to put in more hate for lands, more land hate, which I kind of forgot looking at my sideboard. But anyhow, let's see if this pays out one way or the other. So we're gonna keep, and I'm gonna start off with the polluted delta here to keep all my options open, like in case we're running into a Swift Spear deck. Our opponent's not running any companions, therefore definitely not the mirror. So here, of course, Valky isn't great in our hand. I'm still gonna play it probably on turn 2, just to have a look at what's going on, and potentially force my opponents to interact with Valky. Alright, so does have a Burst Lightning, does have a Sprite Dragon, so he cannot play a removal spell and something else just yet. But next turn he could be playing Stormwing Entity. So what's the most likely outcome for him here? If I take the Stormwing Entity, then he knows that I won't be able to transform it for quite a bit. But outgrowing Burst Lightning or Lightning Bolt with Sprite Dragon is also going to be difficult if I have to invest 2 mana. So I think I'm going to take the Stormwing Entity because he does have 2 removal spells. It's possible that he prefers to go with the Sprite Dragon here this turn. But then next turn he does have Burst Lightning as well. So if I force him to use one of his 2 cards here this turn, then next turn he will have to bolt me and then play the Stormwing Entity. Yeah, I think actually taking the Sprite Dragon here makes more sense. And K Command isn't actually a bad draw because we can most likely deal with the Sprite Dragon with it. And then we'd still have the Lightning Bolt for the Stormwing Entity. And next turn he can only cast one or the other. He won't be able to cast both. Which of course is decent. So Burst Lightning. So I think I want to go with just keeping K command open here. Put 2 cards on top of his library. Perfect. Okay, so this is interesting. We could get blown out if he does have a mutagenic growth in hand. But I think I'm gonna still try killing it. Because he could also have a light up the stage in hand. And if that were to be the case, then I don't want him to also have access to that this turn. Alright. Soul Scum Mage. Let's have a quick look here. Push. And a cryptic command. So I definitely want to have the cryptic, and I think the additional push is actually also not so bad. So now I do believe, I know about the lightning bolt, of course, in his hand, and I believe that there is a light up the stage in there as well. So if I go and take the, I think I don't need the lightning bolt right now. So I'm gonna go with Valky here. Take the Stormwing entity again. Oh, right, did have a Manama Foes, interesting. Then he has to target my Valky with a lightning bolt, which is still, you know, fine for me. And he only has one draw here that I don't know, which is also important, of course. So now I can probably go after the Stormwing entity with my lightning bolt, at least hopefully. 2 cards on the bottom. Let's see. Perfect. We're still at 717 live as well, so because we force our opponent to use all his burn spells onto our Valky, that was actually pretty decent. Okay, does have another Sprite Dragon and an unknown card in hand. No way. No fucking way, dude. Lol. That's actually quite insane. That is fucking insane. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead here and have a look with our Lurus. Just gaining a little bit of core advantage. While also finding out what our opponent's actually drawing, so that's just a bummer for him. It's possible that he keeps the Stormwing entity back. But anyhow, at this point, we've already drawn basically 3 cards of the Lurus. And I don't think that our opponent can come back here. And this is just a stupid attack. I mean, we gained the 3 life back. You're basically having a net negative here. Alright, that's actually a decent card. So I'm gonna go with 7 Visions. That is great. Don't really need any more lands, so I'm just gonna kill that thing. And then we should be good to go. Alright, lost our lures, but we already gained 3 life, drew 2 additional cards. And we do have a color guns command to get it all back. So, yes. But our opponent has drawn super well for, like, all the removal that we had. Our opponent drew another creature every time. Quite astonishing. Alright. So Valky is gonna get thrown out, although he performed pretty decently here. You do want to have Maya Triton. Fluster Storm is a card that I could see in here. I also do want to have an Engineered Explosives. Some of these lists are running a 1 or a 2 of Bedlam Reveler as well. I'm not 100% sure if I should be bringing in Graveyard Hate here. I'm also gonna cut the Jace though. Cut Jace. And cut Cryptic. All right. Dark Polo. Hand's great, but sadly we don't have a black source. Don't think that we can keep this. Hand would be perfect. Not gonna lie. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Sure. Seems reasonable. This is definitely not a moto bug, right? Okay. So we're gonna keep this, and I probably have to ditch the Blood Crypts. And the Archmage Charm. I think I'm gonna go with this. I don't know what it is, but something's so deeply wrong with Moto that... Alright, so... I think what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna play the Blood Crypt tapped, so I do have Lightning Bolt up next turn. Very interesting that our opponent didn't have a turn 1 play. Could also go with the Polluted Delta here. I think Polluted Delta might actually be better. Then I can go end of turn Steam Vents, and if I really need to kill it in his turn, or yeah, I think this is actually worth it. So the only way we get blown out here is by mutagenic growth, right? Okay. So I'm not playing around Blood Moon because these lists mostly don't run any. I think Archmage's Charm is actually not super great here, just due to the fact that he didn't have a turn 1 play, and therefore I cannot take anything with it. On the other hand, though, if he doesn't have follow-up, I could just draw 2. Yeah, I'm gonna put it on top. Of course, we are gonna get fucked if he does have a Stormwing Entity now. Okay. Super weird, but okay. So since he didn't have a mutagenic road last time, I think I'm gonna try this. Alright. So this worked. There's a Lavador in the bin, which I'm fine with, and then I take over the other Soul Scum Mage this turn. Also, you cannot flashback the Lavadors right now. So we're taking 3, going down to 11 at the very least. Nope, another Lavador. Oh my goodness. So going down to 9, but now our opponent doesn't have anything anymore. And I probably do want to do it right now, just due to the fact that my opponent might have brought in counter magic. And then next turn we can go get lures into our hand and also have protection up. And I think the only card that I really don't want to see here is a Stormwing Entity. That would be really bad for us. But it doesn't seem like he had one. Yeah, otherwise he would have just slammed it here. Alright, so let's attack. And then get the lures into our hands. Snapcaster Mage is a good backup, although, of course, we still don't have any really good removal spell. Lol. He did draw a Stormwing Entity though, so I guess that was a good draw. And then even if he had a counter spell here, our Snapcaster Mage is definitely going to take care of that Stormwing Entity next turn. What else do you have, opponent? So I guess I could try to protect my lures, but since I do have K command in my graveyard. I don't actually think I need to. And he'll also, no matter what he draws off the top, he won't be able to kill my Lurus just with the Lavadords. Let's see. If I get in one hit with Lurus here, I think we win. Alright, we win. Right, welcome to round number 3. We are playing South ASEC. And we are on the play, and I think I just saw him having a 5-0, but I cannot for the life of me remember what he was playing. I think we're gonna keep this. So typically he's playing some aggressive decks, so it's possible that he's actually playing a Death Shadow list, and if that were to be the case, then the cryptic commands aren't super great, but we shall see. Okay, so it's definitely a blacklist. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hide my Fatal Push until next turn so that he doesn't have additional options with that Inquisition he drew on the top. Alright. Does know about my Fatal Push on top now, though. Oh man, another Inquisition? That's actually pretty decent for him. Oh yeah, now I remember. Now I know what's going on. We're playing against Sultai Lurus. Alright. So lots and lots of Discord spells, and I think even if he does have a Snapcaster Mage, I need to go with the Lurus here. Interesting. So apparently no Snapcaster, no land, and I do not think that he does have a removal spell here for my Lurus, and therefore just gonna play it out. Then that was a really weird keep, I gotta say. Alright, there's a land, and then he should be able to kill my Lurus, I assume. So did have the Snapcaster Mage, but I don't know, this is all somewhat weird. So I do have 6 mana in hand. I think I want to keep the pressure high here. Not wait for Valky to actually do. Yeah. This village rights, interesting. Super weird. So I'm just gonna have a look at what is on top. It's an Ice Fang Wall, which isn't being turned on yet, though. I guess he can go Ice Fang Wall and then into Village Rights. But that would put him, like if he doesn't draw a removal spell, that would just kill him. So yeah, let's see. So I just want to have a look at what he's going to draw next. A failed push. All right, so this is actually an instant. So you can do that in response. And I mean, it's possible that he does have a removal spell, but not super likely, I say. I think I'm going to put him onto removal spell or just die. Yeah. Alright, so opponent's playing a weird deck. I think I want to have Neil's Bomb. Explosive seems correct. I definitely want to have Maya Triton in here. Cryptic Command seems too clunky. Logic Knot's fine. Armament Shum's probably necessary to just have enough resources to stay ahead, because our opponent's also playing Snapcaster Mage and a lot of other value spells. So, 2 more cards to cut. I think Valky is still good. Fail push is necessary. Explosives is fine, probably decent as a one-off. And so our opponent's gonna bring in Graveyard Hate as well, of course. I think Valky provides me with the least utility in the early games, and I don't know if we're gonna make it to the late game, because our opponent's deck seems quite aggressive overall. So our opponent's not playing a bulletproof mana base, so I do not assume there to be a choke. So I cannot play Ice Vanquil, which I do like, because that card's really strong. So I'm gonna try to keep my Lightning Bolt back up instead of going with it proactively here. But I'm still gonna shock due to the fact that I want to hide my Archmage's Charm next turn. So I'm probably not gonna counter any creature unless my opponent shows some weird play patterns. This is a weird play pattern, but since he is again short of mana, I'm just gonna roll with it and hopefully draw 2 cards here. So from what I've seen up until now, it seems like my opponent's not playing any counter magic. It's possible that he does have a Veil of Summer or something, but okay, so apparently it does have draw. No, it does have Ice Vanquil. Okay. That is fine with me, I think. I'm gonna wait until next turn with the Jace, so I have protection as well. So I'm kind of expecting that he has either a Veil of Summer here, a Village Rites, or alternatively yeah, that's fine. Another Ice Vanquil. Do not think that I want to let this happen. Like, I do have a couple of decent cards in hand, and I think I'm just gonna right Unearth, which is interesting. Snapcaster Mage is decent. Unearth is a sorcery. He could, of course, also Snapcaster Mage Unearth, therefore, I think Snap is the only reasonable option here. He could Unearth Snap Unearth, but chooses not to, which is a little bit weird, I think. And that's probably the most superior play you can do here. Shadow of Doubt is a little bit weird though. So he has Push and Shadow in hand plus an unknown card. I guess I could go after the Ice Fang here because 2 damage turn is a little bit much. I think I'm gonna do that. Would be great for us to draw a Nail Spellbomb at some point. Because our opponent's deck is super dependent on the graveyard. Alright, so He's keeping up the Shadow of Doubt, I assume. I'm just gonna go return my snap and make him discard a card. Oh, discarding Fatal Push, interesting. Interesting indeed. Fuck these Ice Fang Calls, honestly. Super annoying. Alright. So it's very likely for our opponent to still have at least one Fatal Push in hand, right? And I assume that he is gonna go that he's gonna wait for another land to just drop the Lurrus right away, which is fair. I'm gonna take these two, and then end of turn, if he doesn't do anything, I'm gonna go with K commands. So we'll go with the Snapcaster Mage here. We're basically in a similar situation as our opponent, right? So I think I want to get most value out of my stuff right now. Because I have the same play pattern as well. If he goes tab out for Lurrus, that's fine as well. Perfect. This is definitely a decent draw. And then I can go with Maya Triton to get back a little bit of life. And also put a little bit of pressure onto the battlefield. No, that's completely and absolutely fine. So he did have a lot of removal, and I am correct. So my opponent outside of Drown Lock apparently is not playing any counter magic. Potentially does have Veil of Summer, of course, but all right. It's also decent. So of course my Drown Lock now is pretty much turned off. But I think what I'm doing here playing my Jace, see if he has anything to answer it. If that is not the case, another Ice Fang. Fuck this shit, man. So I don't want to counter it here because he will get it back with the Loris next turn. It's the fourth Ice Fang. The fourth 2-for-1. Fucking insane. I think that's fine. Does have a Cling to Dust, which I think I'm going to counter here. Because I can take his Inquisition. I can take his Lurus with Inquisition. Or with a K command would even be better. Then I also get rid of an Ice Fang. Yeah. I think that's decent. Cool. I need 4. So I guess I actually don't need to do it this way. I could also just go this, and exile this. That's actually pretty decent. This way I can kill the Tarmogoyf. Ooh. Oh man. Am I being greedy or am I not being greedy here? Oh, I think I just want to kill the Tarmogoyf and get rid of the... So the question is, in case my opponent does draw a discard spell, right? How fucked am I? Because if I next turn go with Lurus, I won't be able to play anything off it, and therefore I think this is actually better. And we can also even raise these 2 Ice Fangs in case there is some sort of... Okay, perfect. Did draw a Drownloch. Not bad, not bad. And this needs 5 cards to be exiled though. All right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. Am I even countering? Just making sure I hit the right card here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So spell bomb, and I think I'm just gonna crack here. Because if he draws a fetch land, then you can just roll with it. And as I said, like, we're now pretty far ahead on board. And our opponent needs to draw, like, not even a fail push is enough. Perfect. Perfect, 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 perfect. So let's see what you do if I play this. And then I go with K-Command. And then I go with this. But we got so much value this turn already. Should be difficult for our opponent to come back. All right. Number 4, and apparently we are on the play here, third time in a row. That is almost dramatic. Right, so I'm going to keep this. We cannot play the bolt, but we do have removal in forms of drawn lock, and we're on the play, so our Inquisition just becomes a little better. So I'm going to keep, and we also do have an additional draw with the bubble here. So let's see what our opponent does have on top. Oh shit, it's Living Ends. So thankfully we do have Cluster Storms in our sideboard, so that should help, but Living Ends is super strong. And has multiple forces in hand. Yeah, this is what makes the new types of Living Ends so so good. It's completely blue, and you can protect your deck with both Force of Negation and also Brazen Borer. So yeah, I have to take a Force of Negation anyway, no, not a real choice here. And he already does have Violent Outburst on top, so the main thing we're hoping for to achieve before he can go off is finding another Inquisition, because otherwise we're gonna get blown out with the Violent Outburst. Cryptic is not great here. None of this is. So it all comes down if our opponent can find. This is all 1 mana cycling. And it all comes down if our opponent can find another 2 lands off the top until turn 3. If he stumbles once, that might be enough for us to get our Snapcaster through. It's not looking good. Also, the problem here is, yeah. Even if we had drawn lands here, I probably wouldn't be able to go with Snap. I mean, I would have had to try it, but he would have just countered it with the Force anyway. So this is gone, this is gone. Alright, so now all his blue spells are gone from hand that we knew about, but I assume that he does have more in hand indeed. Yeah. And now we're pretty dead. And this is what makes the deck so strong, right? You don't have to do anything, just get to 3 mana, and it's basically over. We're gonna try it, but there's not a whole lot that we can do here. Oh, that's GG. So Flusterstorm coming in, Thoughtseize coming in, Damping Sphere is also coming in, and Neil Spell Bombs. This is gonna go because we can't target any of his creatures with them. Valky is not great either. Doesn't do a whole lot. We do have Maya Triton though. That helps in a couple of regards. Fuck my life. Damn it. Well, we're gonna go and get rid of Violent Outburst because the other two are sorcery speed, and therefore at least we're not running into a force of negation. But certainly also not great. So I'm gonna do this and have a look at his hand again. Drew a land on the top. Therefore, I also cannot tap out on turn 3. Because one has to be honest here. I mean, we can't kill this. This is also the only card that is killable with a Lightning Bolt in his deck. Except for maybe also Brazen Bora, but do we already know about that one? Yeah, we did. So he's gonna cycle this thing. He apparently doesn't have another cycle, and these 3 cards we know. Let's see. So his last card in hand is a Mana Confluence. And I can kill one of the creatures, so I think I'm gonna take the risk here, end of turn. Alright, he's not going with the green source anyway, which is a little bit weird, but I think I'm gonna take the risk here, end of turn. Might have a Mystical Dispute though. Okay, he's not doing anything here. I do have a Cryptic Command up, so I would have double counter spell. I don't expect him to, like, he cannot play the Brazen Bora, therefore I think I can deal with 2 creatures, even 3. So I can kill one there, then go to my turn, yeah. So I think I'm gonna go with a 7 Visions here. There's the Flusterstorm. So I'm gonna put the dreadboard to the bottom in the hopes of finding more lands so that we can get ahead that way. Also, now there's a storm count here in the corner, which of course is super weird if nobody has a storm. So it's only being shown if one of the players has a storm card in hand. And so if my opponent's thinking about it now, he already knows that I do have a Flusterstorm, and this of course is not a great feature from Modo, but it is one that you can also utilize versus Storm. Because you know whenever they're doing stuff and there is no Storm counter in the corner, you're probably not lucky running into empty or grape shot. So he definitely has a mystical dispute here, and that's also why he was setting it up this way, which is interesting, of course. I'm inclined to try going with a Drown Law here to potentially get his mystical dispute out and keep the Flusterstorm up, because then I can go next turn. But I will have to utilize my Flusterstorm anyway. So So I'm gonna try to be aggressive with my Snapcaster Mage in spots that I deem worthy. Because if he counters it, it doesn't matter anyway. He doesn't have more lands. That is great. But we don't either, so maybe it's not as great. And the way he tapped here makes me think that he does have another Violent Outburst in hand. Which will... I think there is no downside risk to this. Unless he also has Force of Negation. Alright. Because now he cannot go off in my turn. Alright, that's reasonable. Probably should have played around that one. So I'm gonna try to go with... These are just 3 cards here. And potentially Street Weight as well. Because how many have we seen? Just one. So he probably has a couple in hand that he's teasing here. But our opponent has drawn supremely well if he does. Because we've already gotten rid of 2 of these. Yeah, that was obvious. Did have a mystical dispute, did have a Brazen Bora. That's actually quite insane. But we can get rid of 2 of these immediately as well. Just 1 turn too late. So you have to get rid of these 2, right? That one is not as important. So if I kill this, then I can kill this with Dronloch. If he also does have force of negation here, that's fucking insane. I can also bounce that one. Yeah. So our opponent had probably the best draws he could possibly have. So now I'm just dead to many things. Like I can't do anything here because of the Brazen Bora. So that's super unfortunate. That's super unfortunate. Insane draws. Nothing that we could have done about this. So I'm gonna return a creature and tap his team. And I probably have to go after this dude. And then we're still at 1 life, even if we're... Oh, no, it's actually not true because of the... That's actually not correct. So I need to counter this one next turn. And then block. Just honestly insane draws there by our opponent. I mean, it was obvious that he did have 1 counter spell. The Brazen Bora was really good against the Damping Sphere, otherwise I think we win every counter war, because then I'm just blanking his additional counter spells. So I think it was still correct to play the Damping Sphere here. Well, anyhow. Alright, welcome to the last round, and we're still recording audio, which is great, and we're on the play again, which is noteworthy. We're gonna keep and see what we're playing against. So either Death Shadow or we're playing against that shit again. Oh my goodness. It gets living end. Oh yeah, and this also, like, I was having a discussion on Reddit with a couple of people in regards to non-creature combo and how non-creature combo always gets the bitter end of the stick. And Living End is just super strong in the current meta. Really, really strong. So again, I think I just have to get my Snapcaster Mage down before something happens. We know about the caller here, and therefore I'll keep my Lightning Bolt up for future turns, just in case something happens. Also, what's interesting is we basically have taxing effects on almost anything, but we do not have a taxing effect on cycling, I think. At least not in the typical death and taxes taxing category. So maybe that is something that WotC wants to explore as more and more cyclists get into the format. All right, so I'm gonna attack here and probably just play the Creeping Torpid. Reason being that my Drowned can always counter a Living End anyway, and I don't want to give him a Swamp just in case that he gets it through. Also, of course, by virtue of just being a cantrip deck with basically 10 combo cards or 11 combo cards plus protection, it's super difficult to, or it's super easy for the Living End deck to also always have some sort of protection in hand. And that is pretty annoying playing against it. So if he passes here with 7 cards in hand, it's next turn we would have 2 counter spells, but this turn it's not looking good. And I probably cannot counter any of that. Okay. So no combo this turn, which is interesting. Yeah. So maybe our opponent does not have. I mean, we basically have lethal on the board here, right? So if we can counter whatever he's trying to do this turn, then he's dead. So if he. So if I go with the lightning bolt here, the reason I'm thinking about this is if I'm going with the lightning bolt here and he sees this as an opportunity to combo, then I'm forced to go with Archmage's Charm, which of course counters his combo, but then I won't have double counter up any turn after that. But that might not be such a big issue because I still do have the cryptic command. And if he wants to bounce my Snapcaster Mage with a Brazen Borer, then I don't even need to activate my Tar Pit. Forces it. Wow, that is aggressive. Because now, if I counter here, he's just dead, right? There's no way he has outs to me attacking with both creatures. Or am I missing something? There's no single entity creature, right, that can prevent that. Let's see. I would be surprised. I probably wouldn't have made this play a couple of weeks ago when Summon Spirit Guy was still lethal. Still legal. But now it's a little bit more safe. So I was pretty happy with the way I boarded, therefore I'm gonna board the same way. So this out, here one out, this out to this most part, and I wanna have this, I wanna have this, I wanna have Damping Sphere, I wanna have these. So I think I'm gonna take this out as well. Those are 10. And then I can take out one of these and one of these, right? Maybe Valky is better than my Triton due to the fact that it can get things like Brazen Borer, but my Triton also just puts cards in our graveyard, which makes it more likely for me to find like a Snapcaster Mage, etc. Or maybe I don't want to have either and just go with Lightning Bolts. Okay, command is just bad here. I should take that one out, and this way is better. I doubt that this is a keepable hand. We have so many sideboard cards that this is just not good enough. This is though. So I'm gonna get rid of the Mishra's Bauble because we need to make our land drops here, and Seven Visions is just better in finding our graveyard hate, etc. And we're finding one anyway. So I'm gonna go with this, I think, starting off. Having a look. Oh yeah, another added benefit of these decks, I don't know if this is the case now, but you've seen it before. This deck can basically always keep a one-lander unless there's like just cascade spells in hand otherwise, because they're just cycling so much that it's super consistent, just super consistent. All right, so there's a dispute and whatever this is. All right, so definitely gonna take the violent outburst. There's no way around it. And now I can go. It doesn't really matter in which turn I do it. Maybe as some oddball sideboard cards. Ardent Plea, alright. So definitely another card I need to get. Because we currently don't have counter spells. And he does have Mystically Dispute, of course, as well. So let's start off with Serum Visions here. See if he disputes it. Okay, so I don't want to have this. I do not want to have this. And now is an interesting spot because I think it's best for me to just go with the Nil Spellbomb here. If I go with the Thoughtseize, I can still get blown out. But, and also next turn I won't be able to play my Nil Spellbomb unless I take the Mystical Dispute. Therefore, I think this is correct. And I actually put 2 cards in the bottom. I already forgot. So what he can do, of course, he can cycle Hope for a Force of Negation. If he cycles into a Force of Negation, that will be the best case scenario for our opponent, of course. All right, cool. So now he has to find a Brazen Bora to force us to use the Nil Spellbomb first. But at that point, we hopefully already have taken his Ardent Plea. Or he's just utilizing the Ardent Plea proactively, which, you know, is also fine because then he has to fill up his graveyard again. So let's see. Next turn I can get Lures to my hand while also keeping up the Nil Spellbomb potentially. Well. This is somewhat annoying. But still gotta go, or gotta do what you gotta do, right? And yes, these decks are dependent on the graveyard, but as I said, like, just being able to protect your combo so incredibly well through so much hate, it's just super strong. Super strong. Alright. So now I'm gonna get out my Lurus. Just so that, you know, whenever he is forcing the issue, he has to keep up some sort of either a Force of Negation or something else to deal with my Lurus. And as long as I'm not forced to play the Lurus or utilize my Spellbomb, I'm not going to do so. But instead, just go with a couple of Maya Tridents here to put a little bit of pressure on him. I could play the second Maya Trident as well, but I don't think that is necessary, I can do it turn by turn. That's a good draw. Now I do have counter magic up as well, while simultaneously also going with a Mire Triton here. And then at some point he has to move. And he has to get through a couple of things in order to get there. And now we're at a point in time where I just want to go Spellbomb his graveyard without actually utilizing the required mana to draw a card. Well, we basically have a 2-turn clock now. Without having to do anything else, I can leave everything open, which is fine. And my opponent needs to find some ways of interacting here. I assume that he's looking for a Brazen Borer. Or potentially this one creature that lets you evoke in order to kill an artifact. But, you know, the difference between this game and the last game is that our opponent has drawn significantly worse. Like, the last games, our opponent's draws were just absolutely insane. Alright, so now it's really gonna get difficult for our opponent. He has to move right now, and he has to cover 3 front lines in order to survive this turn. Okay. So how can I best do this? I don't want to go to my turn due to force negation, right? So I think I'm just gonna go and try going with a lightning bolt here. Because now he still needs to utilize counterspell. So it doesn't really change a whole lot from my side in terms of resources. But I would have next turn free to go with the lures or whatever. What? Yeah, I'm gonna pay. Because I don't see how you're gonna, get rid of this. Alright. So overall, a decent league, I think. We only lost 2 matches, actually. Or 2 games, 1 match. And that was after 2 minutes and after 9 minutes against 2 insane rolls from Living Ends, where we really couldn't do anything else. And everything else was a 2-0. So overall, I'm pretty happy. And as I said, as I said, the matchup against Living Ends is just really close to 50-50, I would say. If your opponent has an insane hand, then you just cannot really do anything, but you have the tools to grind him down. Just have to be proactive early on. because they have to utilize their lands aggressively. And yeah, so as I said, like maybe I want to take out the Grixis Jailers again, as I already stated beforehand, and then go with another Neil Spellbomb due to Living End's Rise. Then I could see something like this and another, but I don't want to have a third Damping Sphere nonetheless. You could then go with Cleansing Wildfire or whatever. Could also go with a third Flusterstorm Force if you'd like to, because Flusterstorm most likely will win you the matchup if you have one in hand. At least if your opponent's not drawing 4 Cascade spells. But anyhow, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you guys around.